Good day. This is a narrated presentation on Chapter 11 Intraspecific Population Regulation. Part 3.
Chapter 11.6 Intraspecific competition can reduce reproduction. Competition within a population can reduce fecundity. For example, the mean age of sexual maturity or whelping for female harp seals or Phocae groenlandica increases with increasing population density. Sexual maturity is related to weight more than to age. As a result, fertility is density dependent. As the seal population increases, the percentage of females giving birth to young decreases markedly. The onset of sexual maturity is size dependent, and the delayed maturity observed with increasing population density is a direct result of the inverse relationship between individual growth rates and population density.
High density is stressful to individuals. As a population reaches a high density, individual living space can become restricted. Often aggressive contacts among individuals increase. One hypothesis of population regulation in animals is that increased crowding and social contact cause stress. Such stress triggers hormonal changes that can suppress growth, curtail reproductive functions, delay sexual activity, decrease births, and increase infant mortality. They may also suppress the immune system and break down white blood cells, increasing vulnerability to disease. So, pheromones are perfume-like chemical substances that are produced and released into the environment by an animal that affect the behavior or physiology of other individuals of its species. In social insects, pheromones released by the queen have been identified as an important mechanism in controlling the development and reproduction of colony members. Dispersal can be density dependent. Some individuals leave the parent population whether it is crowded or not. There is no hard and fast rule about who disperses. Because dispersal under conditions of high population density is a response to overpopulation, this type of dispersal does not function as an effective means of population regulation. More important to population regulation is dispersal when density is low or increasing, well before the local population reaches the point of overexploiting resources. Ecologists Dominic Berthoud and Stan Botin of McGill University studied dispersal in a red squirrel population in the Yukon in Canada. The dispersal of older female adults increased the survival of their juvenile offspring that remained on the home area during the winter months when food resources are scarce. Dispersal may not function as a regulatory mechanism, but it contributes strongly to population expansion. It also aids in the persistence of local populations. Social behavior may function to limit populations. Social behavior appears to be a mechanism that limits the number of animals living in a particular habitat, having access to a common food supply, and engaging in reproductive activities. Many species of animals live in groups with social organization. Such organization stabilizes and formalizes intraspecific competitive relationships and resolves disputes with a minimum of fighting and wasted energy. Social dominance plays a role in population regulation when it affects reproduction and survival in a density-dependent manner. An example is the wolf. Wolves live in small groups called packs. The pack has two social hierarchies, one headed by an alpha female and the other headed by an alpha male, who is the leader of the pack. Below the alpha male is the beta male. Mating within the pack is rigidly controlled. At high pack density and decreased availability of food, individuals may be expelled or leave the pack. Thus, at high wolf densities, mortality increases and birth rates decline.
11.10. Territoriality can function to regulate population growth. The area that an animal normally uses during a year is its home range. Overall size of the home range varies with the available food resources, mode of food gathering, body size, and metabolic needs. Among mammal species, the home range size is related to body size, which reflects the link between body size and energy requirements. If the animal defends any part of its home range, we define that part as a territory, which is a defended area. If the animal defends its entire its home range and territory are the same. The defense of a territory involves well-defined behavioral patterns like song and call, intimidation displays, attack and chase, and marking with scents. Territoriality functions to limit access to the defended area by other individuals in the population. If all pairs that settle in an area can establish a distribution of individuals within the population and does not regulate it. Only when there is an excess of males and females of reproductive age unable to establish breeding territories or non territorial adults would reproduction be limited, and would territoriality act as a mechanism of density dependent population regulation. 11.11 Plants preempt space and resources. Plants are not territorial in the same sense that animals are, but plants can capture and hold onto space. Plants establish zones of resource depletion associated with their canopy and root systems. In fact, the presence of a uniform distribution is often used as an indication that competition is occurring within plant populations. Plant ecologist James Cahill of the University of Alberta has conducted a variety of experiments that have quantified the relationship between overlap in the rooting zones of neighboring plants and below ground competition by using root exclusion tubes made of PVC pipe. Results of these experiments have demonstrated that because of longevity, some plants, especially trees, occupy space for a long time, preventing invasion by individuals of the same or other species. The Ali effect, which is named after the ecologist W.C. Ali, who first proposed this mechanism of population regulation. Small populations can be susceptible to a variety of factors that directly influence the rates of survival and birth that result from life history characteristics related to mating, reproduction, and defense. Population regulation is a density dependent process, meaning that population growth rates are regulated by the density of a population. For example, during intra and interspecific competition, the reproductive rates of the individuals will usually be lower, reducing their population's rate of growth. At low population size, birth rate declines or mortality increases, and below some minimum population density, the rate of population growth is negative. Ecologists Irene Hackney and James McGraw of West Virginia University examined the reproductive limitations imposed by small population size on American ginseng, Phanex quinquefolius. Fruit production per plant declined with decreasing population size. The reduced pattern of per plant fertility was the result of reduced visitation by pollinators. This is the end of part 3. Part 4 will be linked in the description box.